Mono Sanbonani, hello, how's it? Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to another episode of Vuka Nazo, the Wednesday edition of the show. My name is Sihle Ngobese, aka Big Daddy Liberty. Remember, if you want to get in touch with us here on the BDL show, find us on our website, will you? That's www.bigdaddyliberty.com. And also make sure you catch our other shows, including the Big Daddy Liberty Show, Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. and of course, Liberty and Friends, Sunday at 8 p.m. With that being said, how about we stop waffling and get straight into the news? All right, we begin here this morning with a age-old problem that this country has been facing under this current crop of political leaders, and that's unemployment. Well, the numbers came out, and according to the latest from Stats SA, the figure has gone down a tad. That is, unemployment has dropped by 0.6% in this country. Now, you'll expect me to be, wearing the party hat and celebrating this, but in reality, there's nothing to celebrate here. The country is effectively shuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic, whilst the problem of unemployment remains at its current unprecedented levels. Let me read a quick piece and a write-up here in The Independent on this particular issue. The Independent citing, of course, when it broke down the data, that Stats SA said that the unemployment rate, according to the expanded definition of unemployment, also decreased by 1.4%. Down to 44.1%. That's down from 45.5%. Again, if you look at the breakdown here, the youth unemployment rate, measuring job seekers between 15 and 24 years old, fell to 61.4% in the second quarter of 2022, the lowest in almost 2 years. That was from, of course, 63.9% in the previous quarter. End of quote. Again, I read those particular data points because they're the three major areas insofar as looking at the data. There's the narrow definition of unemployment, the expanded definition, which you saw, of course, then. Of course, we look at youth unemployment in this country. Those three metrics and the numbers associated with them paint the picture of how dire things are. Don't take it from me. Take a trip around you, have a look around you, see how most South Africans really don't see much in the way of prospects for jobs and instead are looking to welfare and state support in order to barely subsist. Worse yet, those in power continue to push bad policies that deny people the freedom, the ability to have a sense of self-ownership that a job gives you, and instead offers them more false promises of the state shall. Any politician who promises you that the state shall do something for you is selling you snake oil. That is why I have no respect for politicians in the ANC, the EFF, and really any of our leftist-leaning politicians who all speak the language of the state shall do X or Y for you. What we need in this country is a policy shift that focuses on liberty, a market economy, and free trade, the very things that create real wealth and empower the individual to create a destiny and income for themselves. We won't see that with the current crop, and indeed, some of the stories we're going to discuss today will point exactly to why there is no hope for a lot of our young people. And let me be precise and specific, and I'll end this one here. Our current crop of political leadership have destroyed the economy to the point where real industry that should be creating jobs in this country that are driven by the private sector are on the decline. You'll remember, of course, we discussed and I showed you how manufacturing in this country had declined by, I think, just under 4% and had already, we'd seen a decline in this country in manufacturing to the point where the number of South Africans employed in manufacturing in South Africa is the same as it basically last was in the 30s in this country. Only 1.8% of South Africans of the total population are involved in manufacturing. Again, I'm painting a picture here that I need you to understand. Celebrating a minor drop in unemployment and a massive increase often of unemployment in this country is neither here nor there. It is shuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic. What we need now is serious policy reform that allows the private sector to be unleashed to create the jobs that we need. All right, I take you, of course, now to the streets of South Africa, where, as I reminded you on Monday, the trade unions COSATU and SAFTU, that's the Congress of South African Trade Unions, and of course the South African Federation of Trade Unions, still a tongue twister, had pledged to shut the nation down, they said today. We'll see how any of that pans out after, of course, they indicated that they'll be hitting the streets in 7 provinces in order to protest on behalf, or rather to raise the plight, they said, quote, of the unemployed, to raise issues of around electricity tariffs, pardon me, and of course to voice their displeasure on the petrol price. Now, SAFTU itself, the One Trade Federation, also said, you know, ahead of this protest, what we want, almost like a terrorist, like a terrorist organization, what they want, of course, you know, if this march is not to happen, the state has to accede to its demands. And what are those demands? Well, SAFTU basically had to say this. The trade union SAFTU wants government, of course, to avail R1 trillion to meet the demands it has made ahead of its national shutdown. Of course, it insists that government has the ability to redirect funds in order to address more pressing issues such as unemployment, end of quote. Now, with that being said, you can almost imagine what that means. Whenever lefties talk about more funding, it's one of two things, or even both. One, tax you more in order to give that money to politicians and the political elites for them to spend on often vanity projects, the very same vanity projects that haven't created the jobs to date. Because remember, this has been how politicians and really the leftist establishment in this country has operated. They've always believed in taxing us more in order to spend more as government. Number two, if not tax you more, or even simultaneously print more money in order to basically pay for social programs or government programs that are meant to quote unquote alleviate poverty, which they never do. So both of these solutions, both of these interventions are the status quo. It's what this government and these politicians and these political elites have been doing, and it doesn't work. What we really need is a radical shift in how we do things. And I don't mean radical economic transformation, that misnomer, but instead a radical shift that basically prioritizes you, giving you more freedom, giving you the entrepreneur, the individual, the person who takes risk in society, whether you're a black entrepreneur or white entrepreneur, is irrelevant. That's not the issue we're prosecuting, and it never should be the issue. But instead, you, the entrepreneur, should have the freedom in a free market where you have free trade, where you have the freedom, whether you're a factory worker or a Fortune 500 CEO, to, number one, build an income. From that income, create savings or household savings, and from those household savings, have the money to be able to buy a higher quality of life. That's the formula. That's the formula. And you can only best achieve that in a market economy where people all have the freedom to trade. And that's the very thing in this country that has been denied to entrepreneurs, where the government gets in the way by passing all sorts of red tape and legislation that interferes with the economy. Enough with that. But unfortunately, this is what SAFTU wants more of. And not only does it want more of that, not only does it want more taxes, more printing of money, it also wants more welfare, which is ironic. Here are the words of the trade union leader or boss, Zwelinzima Vavi, speaking, of course, about more of the demands of SAFTU.
Is there a way, a national shutdown of all workers, of ordinary workers, of professional workers, of white and black workers, of the middle class, and for those in areas that we will be organizing marches, we are calling on them to join the demonstrations. Secondly, we want an end to the austerity programs. We want the government to agree that the only way to address the levels of poverty amongst the youth and the women in our country is the introduction of the basic income grant of 1,500. The third point, people say, where will the money come from for 1,500? Hold on, where have you been? Don't you know even the South Africa's economic history? This government inherited a taxation system from the National Party wherein corporates were taxed at 54% on the eve of the democratic breakthrough of April 1994. In 1992, corporates were paying 54% of corporate taxes. Our government were convinced, under the name of creating a conducive environment, which have never been conducive. The only thing that is really conducive in South Africa is the profits in the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. But they were convinced that they must create a conducive environment. And that conducive environment meant that they must now cut the corporate taxes from that 53% to 27%. In fact, they're still aiming to drive it further to 25%.
There you have it. He basically is pushing the same nonsense that we've been experiencing, which has gotten us into this mess in the first place. More taxes, more printing of money, more government control, a bigger and ever expanding government, which costs the economy trillions that we don't have, or trillions rather that could be best placed allowing us, the entrepreneurs, ordinary South Africans, to create opportunity. No. He would rather want that to still be in the hands of the state, indeed even more of it in the hands of the state. And for those unfortunate South Africans who are trapped in this vicious cycle, a platitude is what he offers of a welfare, of a basic income grant. Not jobs, which is what people need, not employment, which is created by the private sector. No, more welfare, effectively making poor people dependents of the state. You will never build a free, prosperous and property earning society so long as these people are the sort of people who control thought leadership and also the echelons of society, whether it be government or the private sector. What we need is freedom, liberty, and to free poor people to be the sort of people who create an income, from that income savings, from those savings buying themselves better options and wealth. Right, in my final story this morning, I want to pick up on a conversation we had yesterday, or only this time, more comment has come out on this particular issue, this time from the Treasurer, or rather the Treasury's acting DG, that's Director General, A1 Ishmael Momainat. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Apologies to him if I butchered it, but the statement he made is absolutely correct. Momainat, of course, basically pointing out in a piece in News 24 the following. The Acting Director General of the National Treasury, that's Ishmael Momaniat, says that preferential procurement, that's BEE, has been applied in a way that has produced irrational outcomes. And these irrational outcomes are costing the economy. In 2017, the new regulations on preferential procurement said that all contracts above 30 million rand should contain a, quote, local subcontracting element of 30% where feasible. And of course, these regulations made it possible for state entities to set aside a portion of their contracts for specific groups that were previously disadvantaged by apartheid, end of quote. Now, here's the thing. I already made mention of this yesterday on Vuka Nazo, and I'll say it again. Anytime you allow government to pick winners and losers in society, you're basically then giving the power, or rather the ability to manipulate the system to those who have the power to pick and choose winners and losers. And invariably, they will pick their winners over and above those who really need the assistance and the support. That is why I made that distinction that BEE, or triple BEE as it stands, doesn't really aid and assist the ordinary poor chap in this country, black as he may be, and instead focuses on those who have close proximity, close access, preferential access, if you will, to people who are the pickers of winners and losers, invariably politicians. So often you see BEE benefiting elite black folk at the expense of poor black folk, and it is absolutely correct for this Momoniat chap, or Momoniat chap, to rightly point out that this costs the economy. Anytime you have a situation where it is rent seekers and grubby cronies of politicians who are benefiting timelessly from these state contracts, number one, it does two things. Number one, it creates a dependency culture and an entitlement culture that Barbara Hogan, you'll remember, we spoke about her, rightly called entitlement. That's what the first thing it does. Absolutely, it does that. And number two, it doesn't actually assist, as I mentioned, poor, mostly black folk who need this assistance in order to get a foot on the ladder. So I will repeat what I said, and I'm happy to see more voices joining in this chorus. Scrap BEE. BEE is a scam. It is a scam that assists and rewards greedy, often corrupt political elites and black elites. It doesn't do anything for that poor chap who I always mention as my prime example, that poor young man, black man as it may be, who lives in a shack on a sand dune in Cape Town. He is not a beneficiary of BEE. What you need is empowerment policy that focuses on people for being poor and not because they have a certain skin color. Help me because I'm poor, not because I'm black. The day we do that will be the day we see true economic empowerment in this country. We'll discuss this and more in other episodes and other forums on the show, but let me know what you think about that particular approach. I'll be interested in getting your view. All right, people, we end today's show over there. What do you think about the show? Do you enjoy it? Let me know what you guys think about some of these ideas. Guys, remember, please, I'm almost begging you guys at this point. Hit the like button of the show and please share it so that we can actually grow our audience. I'll super appreciate that. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, do me a solid favor, hit that subscribe button and of course the bell notification so that every weekday from 7 a.m. you'll know when the show is up. And of course, find me on my website. That's at www.bigdaddyliberty.com. There you can also make a financial contribution towards the show. People are contributing as little as 100 Rand to 150 a month, and it really does help get this content out and pay for people who assist me with putting it together. With that being said, thanks for watching today's Vuka Nazo. I'll see you tomorrow only on Vuka Nazo.